everybody. Welcome to the Cats and Bolts podcast. It's episode number 5 of Florida's favorite hockey show here on Apple Podcasts, obviously Spotify and YouTube. I'm your host, Rod Peterson, with co-host Sarina Taylor. We're brought to you, as always, by DraftKings, Beach House Pompano, Baresco, and now the Diamond Lab, 364A East Palmetto Park Road in Boca Raton. And we're going to catch you up here on episode 5 of the latest on the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning. They've been in nice little home stands here, so there's lots to talk about there. And also, I really appreciate the audience chiming in and answering the bell from our Twitter and Instagram accounts with the questions that you would like answered about the Cats and the Bolts, because let's be honest, where else are you going to get them answered? But let's bring Sarina in. I'm a little disturbed that people really seem to enjoy when we argue on here, because I can tell you without question, I don't. And I don't know if you've gotten any reaction. I've got a ton. People are writing me. It's really good when you guys go at each other on there.
Well, because there's always something for us to fight about. We even asked my dad. My dad watched, my dad of all people.
Hi, Phil.
He learned how to use YouTube, and he watched this podcast with, probably because Jovanovski was on it.
Yeah.
But he even chimed in on our...
No, it's because his favorite daughter was on. But he did say we were both right on the Connor Bedard thing, so Phil's learning very fast to not pick a side. But before we get into the wonderful questions from our audience, and I can't thank you enough for answering the bell. That's what's going to keep us in business, and also you folks supporting our sponsors. But we're not even 10 games in. As we sit here, Sarina, interviewing each other now, we're not even 10 games in. The Panthers are 3-3. And the Bolts 3-2-2 in the Atlantic Division. Neither one's anywhere near the top of the division. So I don't know what generalizations you've come up with for them or the Oilers, your real heart team. But I do want to ask you about going to the game the other night. Who did you see? Because I've been to every Panther game. You saw the Panthers and...
Vancouver.
Yeah, the Vancouver Canucks. What did you think about that?
I felt like the first period was a little blah. It just wasn't that great from either side. But the second and third period, Vancouver really picked it up. And one thing I'll say about the Canucks is they don't have a lot of major superstars on that team, but they worked. They worked really hard. And after the first period, I was like, man, this is going to be a long game. After the second period, first maybe 10 minutes into the second period, I said to him, like, well, not even 10 minutes in, I'm like, this is a different period than the last one. And when I ran into Bill Lindsay after the second intermission, he goes, that was a different period. I'm like, that's exactly what I said. Vancouver just came out so strong. And what I feel that we saw, and I talked to Bill about this in the intermission, is Florida really misses those defensemen.
Yes.
They're missing the Montour, the Ekblad, and technically speaking, Gudas, for what we're talking about here, you can see it in the back. And what Bill was telling me was that he was talking to Paul Maurice earlier that morning, and Paul Maurice said that they are 28th or 29th in the entire league at getting the puck out of their own end, which is a defensive problem. Mm-hmm. So they have to restructure their entire play because they're not going to be able to get the puck out of their own end like they used to.
I'm calling an audible. That's what's nice of the quarterback of this show. I can do that. I'm going to jump right into the audience questions. Are you cool with that?
Absolutely. I love them.
Jamie in Ontario, thanks for following us on Twitter at Cats and Bolts Pod. It's all one word, Cats and Bolts. He says, is the Battle of Florida still a thing? So he's watching the Panthers and Lightning from Ontario, and he doesn't see the hate. And I thought it was a really interesting question. I prefaced you with some of these this morning saying we're going to talk about it. But here's my thought on that. If you look at all the historic great sports rivalries, and I think the Battle of Florida has wonderful potential. It's a little dormant right now. And would you not agree or disagree that the Yankees and Red Sox, it hits a peak, it cools off a little bit? You know what I mean? It's not pedal to the metal all the time. Battle of Alberta, Flames or Oilers is one that really is. The people in that province of Alberta wake up every single day and think about it.
Every day.
Yes. And then there's the Battle of Ontario. There's the Leafs and the Senators. There's the Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens. That's pretty white hot. And we can bring on fans of both. Yeah, they hate each other. And they're thinking about it every single day. That's my definition of a rivalry. Are you thinking about it every day? And I don't think they are with the Battle of Florida. I think when they play in the playoffs, they will. They don't play in the regular season. I looked it up until December 27th. In Sunrise, I believe. That's not good. But I think it will be a thing. It's just not a thing every day. What do you think?
It's definitely not a thing every day. It's not. There's just not the same passion here that there is in Alberta or that there is in Ontario. So you're not going to get that same rivalry. They have played in the playoffs enough to despise each other, and they just don't.
That's what builds it, right?
Correct. Sometimes some rivalries come out like Colorado and Detroit in the playoffs for some random reason because they got into a brawl and it was just a free-for-all, and those two teams despise each other. But like you said, it's not like as hot as it always is. The Battle of Alberta is always raging
it's a daily
fury,
thing.
of course. But yeah, you're right. Comparing it to the Yankees, Red Sox, yeah, it's when the Yankees and Red Sox are both not competing for a playoff spot, it stops a little bit. But the hate for the other team and the other fans is still alive. Here, it's just different. I don't think it's that at all. I don't know. Like if somebody said, who's the Panthers' biggest rival? I don't know. I guess Tampa because it's the closest team, but there's not that intensity. Same thing like Vegas doesn't really have a rival because they're new, and Seattle doesn't really have it. You know what I mean?
They were hoping it would be Arizona, which is actually I'm glad you brought that up. Who is Vegas's rival? They were hoping it would be Arizona, but Arizona has not held up their end of the bargain on that, not making the playoffs ever. By the way, we're brought to you, as I mentioned, by Beach House Pompano, scenic rooftop restaurant on the shores of Pompano Beach, and Baresco, a tropical outpost serving only the freshest tacos and lush jungle vibes. They're at 225 North Pompano Beach Boulevard. They bring you our guest appearances every time that we do have guests. We've had Ed Jovanovski and Bill Lindsay, as Sarina mentioned. More Panthers greats coming down, and we'd like to get some lightning guests as well, usually alum as the winter goes along. I think we're kind of put that to bed in terms of the Battle of Florida. It's just, I do think there is potential there. It's just not a daily thing. If you ask the Panthers players, do you hate the Lightning or vice versa? I'm not sure they would say that.
I don't think so.
But from the fan, you know a lot of fans of both teams, and they don't really like each other. They don't like the other team, right?
Not real. Well, the Panthers fans don't like the Lightning because the Lightning always beat them. So there's that thing. Florida has just had this thing against beating Tampa. They really have a hard time every time they play them. It's just the way it goes. But Tampa's a bunch of seasoned vets, and those guys they got a lot of playoff experience in there.
So is the Battle of Florida still a thing? I'm checking that it is. A small check mark.
I'm checking no.
Okay. From Nathan in Clearwater, Florida, wants to know why John Cooper has never won the Jack Adams Award as the NHL Coach of the Year. And to be honest, we've talked about this over the past couple of years. It makes no sense. He's not even really a finalist. A guy that's got 2 Stanley Cup rings. It makes no sense. And I'd love to know your take on why that is, other than maybe it's not a Toronto, it's not a New York, it's not a Boston. I mean, Jim Montgomery won it last year with the Bruins. Is it because it's not a huge media market that John Cooper doesn't get the attention?
No, because this league pushes everything toward the South. Anything they can pull from the Torontos and the Montreals, they will do it. So it's not about that. What I think it's about is when you have a guy like Jim Montgomery, he knocked everybody's socks off with what he did with Boston. So I think it was the impact that the other winners had in that moment, in that year. John Cooper's that guy that he almost gets lost in the shuffle because he's always just so good. Yeah, but he's silently good. He likes to yap in the playoffs, and he's, that's what he does is he gets it going. But it's almost like if your kid was getting straight A's every day, every year in school, you're expecting that from that kid. And so the league is expecting John Cooper to be successful all the time because he is.
So he is a victim of his own success.
It happens to the best of us. You know what I'm saying?
I was going to say she's speaking of herself. I didn't want to bring it up, but you did.
Seriously, that's in my opinion, that's the reason why guys are winning the Jack Adams, because they come into a team and it's all of a sudden like, wow, look what just happened to this team. It was a complete turnaround. John Cooper has not had to turn around the Tampa Bay Lightning.
And yet he's done a tremendous job.
I mean, it speaks for itself.
Right. But we also, because of the interview that I had on my television show, which airs daily with Ted Nolan, this is a guy that won the NHL Coach of the Year award in 1997, and then was very shortly afterwards blackballed and never coached again in the NHL as a head coach. It's kind of a kiss of death award. Dan Bylsma, Patrick Waugh, Daryl Sutter.
It's the President's
you
Trophy.
You might not want it.
The President's Trophy for coaches.
So, but it's a good question, and I don't know if you ask John Cooper, what would you rather have?
Come on.
Your Stanley Cup or your NHL Coach of the Year awards? It's obvious. I think it's a great question, right? But I don't think he stays awake at night. Do you? Thinking about it.
Not for 1 second.
Probably not.
No.
Okay. Thank you, Nathan in Clearwater. Kelly in Coconut Grove wants to know what we think about Matthew Tkachuk's goal drought. He hasn't scored in 6 goals to start the season for the Florida Panthers. And again, I'll take a run at this first. If you want to talk about being a victim of your own success, that guy has been redlining the past couple of years. It was a recent one of these shows we said McDavid, Draisaitl, and Tkachuk are the top 3 point scorers the last 3 years. That's high, right? And I'm not even going to talk about those Oiler guys. Matthew has set the bar really high, and now people expect it.
So we had this discussion, and we were talking about this. And when you first brought it up to me about how do I feel about it, I'm like, who cares? Why is everybody getting so wound up about this? Calm down. He's still getting a point a game, or whatever he's at now. At the time, he had a point a game. Still. So I don't understand why everybody's getting so wound up, because here's the thing. You and I watched Tkachuk play in Calgary for a long time. He was not that goal scorer. He was not that guy that you're like, well, Tkachuk's going to put the puck in the net tonight. That is not his style of play. So what he did last year, now everybody here is like, well, because you got a Matthew Tkachuk here last year that we have never seen before. Can you keep it up if you're not a goal scorer? Not usually, no. But that's not his style. And like I said to you, how come nobody's crawling up Barkov's ass for not putting the puck in the net every game? Like, what? That's your captain.
Well,
because they don't expect it, because that's, do you know what I mean? It's apples and oranges.
But I would suggest in a way, I mean, I've been in this business. I know I don't look old, but I am. 35 years I've been in this business, and I only know one way how to do things. And one is this, pointing out things that people don't want pointed out. And when you say, why is everybody making a big deal out of it? Not many are, but it was the other night in the press box with our mutual friend that we sit with. He sat back and pointed at 19 on the roster. He goes, he hasn't scored yet. And I was like, oh, yeah. So the fans aren't really talking about it, but the people in the press box are. Well, shall I say the hockey people are. And you know, in Calgary, where he spent, was it 7 years? They'd be ready to burn the rink down with him in it if he hadn't scored in 6 games. Here, I don't think it's that big of a deal.
But they also, in Calgary, like I said, he's not that guy. They're not going to get upset as long as he's being the Matthew Tkachuk that they're paying him to be, which is what the Panthers fans are going to need to get used to. He's not that guy that's going to put the puck in the net every single game. Yeah. He's just not.
Yeah,
they didn't get him for that.
The other night against San Jose, he had 2 assists, and to be honest, I think he had 3. I was watching pretty closely. I'd like to see the video. Roll it back. I think he had 3 assists, but he's got 6 assists in 6 games. And as we know, growing up playing hockey, they're worth the same on the stat sheet.
You still get 1 point.
You get 1 point. The problem is I blame dads who used to give $5 for a goal and $2 for an assist. They're the guys that screw this all up for everybody. So that's created a generation of puck hogs. Anyways, what?
And if you weren't a goalie, we'd be rich by now.
Yeah, if we scored enough goals. Which, speaking of, wonderful segue, Sarina Dawn.
Always.
Who is, I'm not sure. Oh, it was Thad's question. Who's your favorite Panther and or Lightning, and why?
Current or...
No, current. And by the way, this is Thad from the Beach House in Pompano, who sponsors our guest appearances. His is Ryan Lomberg, the Lamborghini. He was wearing 94 Lomberg the other night, Navy Panthers jersey. He's got a full array of jerseys, as you know. I'll go first,
well,
which I know you hate. Your current, Carter Verhaeghe, for the reasons that are actually pretty good. Not because he's hot, it's because he's a great player. Yeah, you're like, what? Well, you're talking about how great looking Ed Jovanovski was. So
you think Ed Jovanovski's good looking?
We all think Ed Jovanovski's good looking. I think Sergei Bobrovsky is good looking, and I think he's my favorite Panther. You knew it was going to be a goalie for me in Bob. And I love the guy. He's a family guy. I love the nickname. I love goalies. And tell the folks what you said about Bob. You said about he always looks like ...
He looks like he's making his own work.
No, you said you looks like somebody just ripped a blindfold off him.
And yeah, Rod said he looks like he makes his own work, and I'm like, he does. And I said, Bobrovsky looks like he's the guy where there's 5 guys in front of the net, and somebody just ripped a blindfold off of him, and he's like, "Where's the puck? What do I do?"
Because that's in a panic all the time.
Just like Hasek, but not flopping around so much.
I love you, Bob. And that's the thing. We always drive around South Florida, and I see Bob's barricades everywhere, those orange and white barricades on the side of the road. I'm like, how are they not sponsors of the Panthers and Sergei Bobrovsky? Bob's barricades.
It stops something from going to another place. That's what a barricade is.
Yeah, it's to me, I got to do the thinking for everybody. So for me, Sergei Bobrovsky, and we haven't really gotten into why you love Carter Verhaeghe very much. But I mean, to be honest, you and I, you've been saying for years you love this kid.
Before you were even in the area.
Picture. Yes.
Yeah, in the picture, let's call it that. I was like, the first time I saw Verhaeghe play, I was like, that guy right there is the best Panther there is. He's a hard worker. He never makes mistakes. He does everything he needs to do. You could play that guy on the penalty kill, the power play, whatever. I just love Carter Verhaeghe. Always have. I wish he'd go to Edmonton. That would be my dream.
Well,
love him.
I'm going to pause this for a second. We have our next question coming up. Well, you mentioned Edmonton. I think it's important to point out, just so people get to know us as the hosts, a lot of our friends are native Floridians, but a lot of them are not. They've moved here from somewhere. Like I saw a stat, 1 in 4 Floridians wasn't even born in America, let alone in the state.
That does not, so I'm surprised it's that low.
Right. Would you say none of our neighbors are?
None of our neighbors are.
We're even born
Nobody's
in America.
a native.
Yeah. So Sarina's team, have we covered this before? Growing up is the Edmonton Oilers, and I would think the longer you spend in Florida, I hope naturally the Panthers will rub off on you. I think you like the Panthers, but the Oilers will always be your team. You will never, ever, ever move off that.
No.
Just like a lot of fans of other NHL teams that are here, or other, certainly NFL teams. For me, I grew up an Oilers fan. I stopped the day Gretzky was traded, August 9th, 1988. She won't talk about it, which is fine. Bounced around, and my dad worked in the NHL for 26 years with Dallas Stars, so that was easy. Then he retired. I cheered for Arizona for a while and then settled on Vegas. And to be honest, that was good. I was looking for a new team. They were a new team, but then came to Florida. And once they were playing each other, especially in the Stanley Cup final last year, my heart was more with the Panthers. Because, quite frankly, they've treated us so well. Specifically me, all the gifts they've given us and media pass and putting people on our show, which goes into our next question from Jeff in Saskatchewan. He says, how do you guys feel about team culture? And now I should back up for a second. I'm looking at the last question about the Lightning. Do you have a favorite Lightning? Mine will be Steven Stamkos because he's been very nice to me in my times in Tampa Bay. Took photographs with him and stuff. Hard to not love Steven Stamkos, the captain and all-time leading scorer. Do you have a favorite Lightning?
I've been waiting 5 minutes for you to stop talking so I could say we didn't talk about the Lightning player.
So I just did.
Of course, Steve Stamkos.
Okay, so both of us, Steven Stamkos. Yeah.
I mean, that guy, we were talking about our Mount Rushmore kind of thing, and Vince LeCavalier's name came up and whatever else. But since Steve Stamkos played junior, I've been a huge fan. I absolutely love Steve Stamkos. I would have him on my team any day of the week.
Then you must not like the way he's being treated in Tampa Bay.
I do not. Like, of course not. Hey, I saw the Oilers do it to Ryan Smith. And although it wasn't this bad, but no, we're not going there. But Steve Stamkos is my favorite Lightning player.
And me too. And I think he would be for a lot of people that follow this show. We do need to get the Lightning audience up, but if it's more a Panthers crowd, that's fine too. But as far as team culture goes, I cannot say this enough. I had mentioned earlier being around sports my whole life. This culture with this team is as good as I've seen. So when they went to the Stanley Cup final, I was not surprised. When they won the President's Trophy, I was not surprised. And you can talk about what you've seen, but from what I don't know what goes on in the dressing room. I don't know it all. But Paul Maurice said when he showed up here, everybody was asking Paul Mo last year, what did you do? What did you do to get to the team in the Stanley Cup? He goes, I didn't do anything. I didn't screw anything up. He goes, I walked into a great culture, which I knew because I've been saying that for several years. And he just tweaked it. And obviously, he's been a great part of it. But you look at the people, they support each other in that organization. They're very positive. I'm impressed by the culture of the Panthers.
Well, like when we were talking with Bill Lindsay, he said about what a difference maker Tkachuk is in the dressing room. Mm-hmm. He's a dressing room guy. That's just the kind of guy he is. And I think that changing that culture and bringing a guy in like that, I guarantee Tkachuk is a different guy in this dressing room than he was in Calgary, because it's different. And he came in here, he knew he was the man. When Matthew Tkachuk is playing in Calgary, he's not the man. Nobody's bigger than a team in the NHL in Canada. Nobody's bigger than the team. Down here, it's a little bit different. You don't have the pressure from the media. You don't have the pressure from the fans. And so he had kind of a fresh start coming in. And it sounds like he's just been a really good addition to them. But on the flip side, you look at Tampa. One of the reasons Tampa's been so successful is they haven't made a lot of changes in their dressing room. They've kept the big guys, and that is also important as well. So two totally different things, but it's the same result.
Well, I hope, and I only know the Panthers under Bill Zito, who incidentally was a finalist for GM of the Year last year. Jim Nill in Dallas won it. I only know the Bill Zito Panthers. I don't know who's responsible for culture. They often say it starts at the top. Maybe it's Matt Caldwell, the president. Maybe it's Vinny Viola, the owner. I don't know. But whoever's responsible, take a bow. Now and I hope it continues. But over in Tampa Bay, I got a lot of friends over there too. And to be honest, you brought up the playoff series a couple years ago. The Lightning swept the Panthers. So there's not a lot of anger or angst going to come out of a series like that. And one thing the Lightning people told me was they were surprised they didn't get more of a pushback from the Panthers. It's 2 years ago. It doesn't matter now. A lot of those people are gone now. You see the Lightning are going through some changes.
Well, this is what I said at the end of last season or the middle of last season. You can only be so good for so long. You're only going to win so many Stanley Cups with the guys you have. Look at Pittsburgh. They know they're not going to win another Stanley Cup with their guys. They've done it. I said the same thing about Tampa. They're not going to win another Stanley Cup for a long time because you can't. It doesn't. It has to roll through. It has to cycle through. It's what rebuilding is all about. You can be a contender. Pittsburgh is usually they're good contenders usually, but it's one of those things. Vegas is going to be the new Tampa Bay Lightning.
How so?
Well, their team is just so
continually
solid.
Winning.
Vegas, they might not win the Stanley Cup this year. That's not what I'm saying. But Vegas is going to be strong. You look at the core of that team, and we've talked ad nauseum about Kelly McCrimmon bringing guys in and this, and that, and just setting the tone. And you want to talk about the top down. Culture or not, they did something right from the top down. And that's why Vegas won this. That's why Vegas was the best team in the league last year. And they're going to be a very strong team for years to come.
I think, well, I want to move on to the other questions, but Jeff, with his culture question, he knows how important it is. I mean, Jeff, I know him. He runs a hotel. You need people that feel valued. You want people that want to go to work, people that get along. A hotel is no different than a hockey team.
100%.
Right, or a radio station or a TV station or a podcast company. Right, Ben? How you doing back there? We pause this for a second. The NFL season, folks, is going strong, and DraftKings Sportsbook is hooking new customers up with an offer that's even stronger. Bet $5 on any game this week to score $200 instantly in bonus bets. And DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of a sweetener offer every game day this month. Get in on the game day greatness. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the promo code THPN. You see it on the screen. That stands for the Hockey Podcast Network. Use the promo code THPN, and new customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets when you bet $5 on the NFL. That's code THPN, only on DraftKings Sportsbook, official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. Next question comes from Tammy in Calgary, and she wants to know, is it clear now who won the Huberdeau trade?
Is this our Tammy?
I guess. I don't know. Just said Tammy in Calgary. I'm guessing.
I hope it's our Tammy. Our friend Tammy.
Who won the Huberdeau trade? Is it over? Is it done? Can we declare a winner? Matthew Tkachuk for Uyghur and Huberdeau? And Cole Schwint, too, I believe, is in there.
It's not over because it's not just Huberdeau and Tkachuk. I still feel like Weegar. I was really impressed with Weegar when I watched him play here, and I feel like there's still more to come from him. Huberdeau, yeah, unfortunately, I don't think something's going to all of a sudden light a fire under his ass and he's all of a sudden going to score a bunch of goals, but you never know. You never know. There's something deeper, though, I think that's missing in Calgary, that all the puzzle pieces are not there. So regardless of what Huberdeau is going to do, I think, speaking of culture, I think it's a very interesting culture in Calgary right now. They have that loser mentality right now.
Ding, 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 ding. I feel bad for Jonathan Huberdeau, and my friends in Calgary say you can not blame him if he's upset going from beautiful South Florida to freezing Calgary. I don't know if that's it, but they're saying he's not the same guy. Something's different. So it's a different team, and it's a culture thing. I've talked about it on other shows. Chicago Bears are a great example. They're blaming their quarterback now. And I'm like, the problems were there before the young quarterback showed up.
Correct.
Stop blaming everybody.
Correct. It's like, now all of a sudden Huberdeau's the fall guy? No, I don't think that's fair.
It's a sad, repeatable thing over and over and over again. Couple more questions. Jack in Pembroke Pines wants to know how the Tampa Bay Lightning are doing it. And he's talking about winning games without Andrei Vasilevskiy.
Oh, because they're just such a solid team. Let's be honest. Edmonton had a really strong team the last couple of years, and they didn't have a solid goaltender. Edmonton has not had a solid goaltender. That's a whole nother topic. But sometimes I think when you lose your goalie, the other players just pick it up. It's like when you pull your goalie in the middle of the game, the other players just pick it up. Carolina won a hockey game with a Zamboni driver in net because there's no way they were going to let that other team get shots. There was no way they were going to let Toronto get shots on their net. It's the same concept, but Tampa's so strong everywhere. They don't really have a lot of holes to fill. That's why when you lose your goaltender, obviously it's a big thing, but they'll be fine.
Well, Carolina, that was one night. Not 2 months.
No, but you see what I'm saying?
It's the same mentality.
Correct, yeah.
But they're stretching it. To be honest, I didn't think they'd win this much and for that long. And if you want to go a little further into it, it was Carolina they beat on Frozen Frenzy the other night. With 16 games, they shut out the Carolina Hurricanes, they're not supposed to be a good team. They are a good team with two goalies that we don't even really know who they are, Jonas Johansson and Matt Tompkins. So it's this system that John Cooper, who we've talked about on the program today, said we don't want to allow guys come down the middle of the ice. We don't want to give up scoring chances. We want to cut down shots against. And to be honest with you, I thought, sounds nice, but can you do it consistently? And they have. It's another reason why I thought other teams would figure it out within a week, and nobody has yet.
Potentially, but as good as Vasilevskiy is, I don't really think he's really been the reason that they've won Stanley Cups. He's part of the reason. He's not the reason. He played really well when they beat Toronto. I think that's what it was. It was like, okay, Vasilevskiy helped them win that series. But those guys won Stanley Cups because they are strong everywhere. Like I said, there's no holes.
Well,
no matter where you go.
I believe he beat Florida 2 years ago in the sweep. He was the reason. I was there.
Yeah, he was absolutely.
He was shutting them out every game. So he's not exactly the Boulin Wall, as they like to say, but I'm impressed. How are they doing, Jack? Doing it, Jack and Pembroke Pines, they're doing it by solid defense as outlined by their head coach, John Cooper, and they clearly trust Coop, and they listen to him. That's what they're trying to do up in Edmonton with middling results. We haven't fought yet. We got about a minute or two to go. Anything you want to fight about?
We always could fight about something.
Okay. Well, I'd rather not. So I don't want it to be. I don't want it to be staged.
You got to give them what the fans want.
Joe Lazito in New York wrote in about the last episode, and he admired your passion. And I said, if you want to step in the ring with her, anytime, Joe. And he goes, I'm happy right where I am in New York. Thank you. I have this written down. I don't have a lot of time left, but November 12th versus Chicago, your favorite player in the NHL, Connor Bedard's coming in. That was the fight last week.
Correct. And if I could just circle back to a while back, a year and a half ago at the World Juniors in Edmonton in the summer. I was the one that was underwhelmed. I used the term Connor Bedard is underwhelming, and I was obliterated for it.
Not by me.
No, but let me tell you why. Because Connor Bedard played his junior hockey in Regina, in Saskatchewan, where they're going to put their full force behind him. So everybody else in the country is like, yeah, Bedard was underwhelming, but you can't say that to people in Regina because they think the sun rises and sets around him. They can't see two sides of this. So when he got benched at the World Juniors, I was the one that said, Bedard hasn't played this entire period. And nobody wanted to talk about it. It was taboo. They weren't asking him about it, all that kind of stuff. And so when I said he was underwhelming, all of a sudden I hate Bedard. All of a sudden I think he's not a good player. That's not it at all. I think he's an extremely talented player. But the NHL itself is putting too much stock in him because, like even my dad said the other night, and my dad says this about every single player, you have to prove yourself in the NHL before people can start talking. Everybody needs to calm down, but that's the NHL's fault. They did the same thing with Sidney Crosby. Back it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Just chill out.
You've lived here 5, 6, 7 years. What is it?
6 in Florida.
Yeah, well, it's probably not surprising to you that there's no buzz that I've heard that Connor Bedard's coming to town. I've had people DM me from Canada saying, hey, Rod, we're going to come down to Florida and watch Bedard. Where should we go? Sunrise or Tampa? And I'm like, I think you should come to Sunrise. Tickets are half the price.
Yeah.
You'll
get them.
And there's a lot of stuff to do in both places, but why not come to Sunrise? That's what's great about pub and publicity and shows like this. We're selling tickets for the game.
But also, too, what people don't understand, the people that live here, this is a vacation destination. So when we have friends that are like, hey, we want to go check out these games, they look at the schedule and go, where can I go? When I lived in California, I would go to obviously all the Oiler games in LA. And so many people, because Edmonton would play in LA and Anaheim, usually back to back. So many people that I ran into were like, it is cheaper for us to fly to California, stay in a hotel, go to 2 games here, and fly home than it is to buy Oilers tickets in Edmonton. It's true.
And they're not even the most expensive tickets in Canada.
No.
Oddly enough.
No, they're not cheap, but I mean, I can't.
No, I get it. I totally get it. But I'm just saying, in some markets, they're going crazy that Bedard's coming to town. So we have our tickets, multiple tickets for November 12th when Connor Bedard comes with the Chicago Blackhawks.
Have a client that's a big Habs fan, lives in Montreal, has the hate for the Leafs that I have for the Flames. He was offered season tickets for the Habs. Top row, very, very top. No, he's trying to sell it to me. Nobody behind me, don't got to worry about that. $4,000 just to get your rights for that seat. And then the seat itself is $4,000. So that's at the top. So what guys are doing there is they're buying tickets and they're selling off all the big games. So his buddy goes to him, just sell off Toronto, Edmonton, Vegas, and Boston, and you'll make your money back. He's like, but I want to go to those games. Why would I want to sell those off? But realistically, it'd be $8,000 for him to get into season tickets at the top in the rink in Montreal. I almost called it the Forum. I don't know what year this is.
Ridiculous, yeah. Well, we'll be back here next week, and we'll have Panthers guests in the house. I just cannot thank the people enough for stepping up with their questions because it makes our job a whole lot easier, and it was fun.
It was great. I love the questions. They were really good today. I like hearing somebody else's point of view besides just ours because we talk about hockey all the time.
All the time. All right, keep it up, everybody. Big thank you to Christian and Ben, and I don't know where Mark is around. He never shows up, but the real workers are here. Thank you, guys at Podcast Junkies. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next week here on the Cats and Bolts podcast.